Continue our split CSN double dip. Cubs and Cards renew their rivalry tonight up at the confines. Edwin Jackson on the bump, looking for his third straight win. We'll preview the game and a whole lot more. And welcome into Sports Talk Live, presented by our great partners at Land Rover. I'm David Kaplan. Let's meet the panel for today's Fun Fest from the Sun-Times. He is Eric White, Chicago sports personality, always entertaining, Harry Tynowitz. And my dear friend, National College basketball analyst, former head coach, he is Dan Dockich. Welcome to the program, Danny. All right, the Cubs have reached an agreement with the city that would allow the team to build a left field jumbotron at historic Wrigley Field while adding another sign in right field, the team announced this afternoon. Alderman Tom Tunney, whose ward includes Wrigley Field, told the commission that light from the proposed jumbotron would be seen from blocks away. He asks that its size be reduced. The city's landmark commission, which must sign off on any changes to the historic structure, is currently meeting right now whether to approve the deal. All right, Tunney seems to be more than a little upset. He apparently was shaking as he addressed the media and said he cannot support this plan.
Well, I think it's silly. I think anybody that moves into Wrigleyville realizes that the Cubs are the attraction, and you put up with stuff like lights beaming and picking up beer cans in the morning. Whatever keeps them in Wrigley Field, I'm for. They should get the jumbotron. It's 2013, they tell me.
You know, I like the fact that they got rid of that stuff in right field that showed all their futility for years. You know, a
lot of it's back. You'll see it tonight.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't like that anymore. I think that's awful that they put that back. What other place do you sit there and look at your futility in right field?
Right.
You're in the home dugout, third base, and you see the last time you won anything. Usually, when you're at home, there's motivational things.
Like banners.
Yeah, there's things going on.
That's part of the charm of being at Wrigley Field.
I think it's part of the charm, but I think it's one of the reasons, not the reason. There's a million reasons why the Cubs haven't been successful, but I think it's one of them. When you sit there every day and you look and you see...
I haven't won in 105 years.
They have to add a third digit.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You see futility every day. I don't like it. So I'm for any kind of Tron you want to put up there to get rid of that thing.
But it seems like Tunney's waffling a little bit now that he's so upset, too, here a little bit. He must be getting a lot of blowback from some of the guys.
And the mayor. Got to be from the mayor.
Because it seemed like they had a reasonable compromise worked out this morning, and now it seems like we're backpedaling.
What I don't understand is people in the community who complain that there's going to be more people. You moved in, we're above it. It'd be like going to Indiana and saying, Coach Knight got intense with me. Yeah, really?
No.
That's what he does.
I lived in Wrigleyville for a very long time, and there's so many perks. You know, you get to walk to the park. You don't have to drive through traffic and pay $30 for parking. It only took me 8 minutes to walk to the game and just 10.5 hours to walk back. So for the people that complain about all the stuff going on at Wrigley Field, why'd you move there? You're nuts. You're insane. Wrigleyville is one of the coolest places to live in the world, and there'll be a time soon when the Cubs are competitive.
Check out the cool new photo. The Cubs just released this. This is a new rendering of what the ballpark would look like. I mean, it's just awesome.
Let me ask you a question.
Looks like Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
You guys were all here when they put lights in Wrigley Field. Everybody lost their mind, and that's worked out to be really good, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys were here, and maybe this isn't worked out really good. Maybe it has. I don't know. But it used to be the rooftop was where you bought a Weber grill, put it on top. Remember that back in the 70s?
That's it.
Now it's a big corporate deal, and that's worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So generally, people I've found complain.
And then they adapt.
Always.
Right.
That's how I look at this.
And it beats the alternative. And Rosemont's a wonderful place, but we don't want them moving to Rosemont. They're staying in Wrigley Field. So whatever you have to do to touch up Wrigley Field, just do it, and let's get some pitching.
That's the key. That's exactly right.
And put an ad right in the middle of the clock and the scoreboard. That's up for debate, too, right?
Let me ask you a question. My watch has the name of the watch on it. Doesn't every clock or watch say Seiko, Timex, Rolex, whatever it is?
Every time I watch a golf tournament from Europe, there's a big green Rolex sign right there. Right there at every tee. So just put Rolex on it, make a lot of money, and get some pitching.
And look what they did with the Green Monster. I mean, the Green Monster's got ads all over it now, and no one complains because the team, in part because the team wins.
They'll have advertising on the uniforms one day.
Yep.
So I mean, it's
and
just
it doesn't bother me.
Chico's bail bonds, baby.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
That's awesome.
All right, let's move to the White Sox. White Sox and Tigers wrapping up a much more to get to on Sports Talk Live. Remember the good old days of 1998? The home run race between Sammy and McGuire? One former player wishes it could be like that all over again. You don't want to miss what John Rocker has to say. That's coming up next.
Sammy hits a rocket straightaway center field. Redmond will win goodbye. There's a drive, hammered deep toward right center. That ball is out of here. Souvenir time for Sosa. Slider swung and belted deep left center field. Sosa has tied Mark McGwire. There's another ball way out of this ballpark. That one's down 10 more over the tree and down the street. That one, folks, is one of the longest tape measure jobs you'll see here.
All right, you still have time to vote on today's poll question. How do you like your Major League Baseball? A, like it was in '98, pre-steroid testing. B, like it is now. Right now, 65% of you like it 1998 style. Go to CSN Chicago, scroll to the bottom left. Results ahead on Sports Talk Live before the show ends. All right, John Rocker. Who could forget this idiot? Former Braves closer, best remembered for a 1999 interview in which he admitted, "I'm not a very big fan of foreigners," among other hateful comments. Well, he was a guest on a sports talk radio show in Cleveland yesterday, made this claim that baseball was better back in '98. Listen.
This may go against what some people think from an ethical standpoint. I think it was a better game. At the end of the day, when people are paying their $80, $120, whatever it may be, to buy their ticket and come watch that game, it's almost like the circus is in town. They're paid to be entertained. They want to see some clown throw a fastball 101 miles an hour and some other guy try to hit 500 feet. That's entertainment. You're paying to be entertained. And, I mean, was there anything more entertaining? I don't care how each man got there. Was there anything more entertaining in 1998 watching Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire chase 61 home runs? I mean, that was absolutely, obviously, that there's, quite a few shoes that fell since then. But, I mean, that was absolutely just mesmerizing time and a great time for every baseball fan out there watching that. I mean, we all know after the fact, why we were able to watch that, but it was entertaining and the people were getting their money's worth.
All right, Rocker wasn't done. When asked about the Hall of Fame, he talked about his experiences at autograph signings, being around Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks. Take a listen.
You look at the ethical side of things. I have talked to a number of Hall of Famers. I was doing a signing last November, I believe, up in New York with quite a few Hall of Famers, Rod Pruitt, Ernie Banks, and those guys. And those guys that played, during yesterday, they absolutely do not want players that were known to use steroids, do not want them in their Hall of Fame. This is what I heard Ernie Banks say, because I do not want those guys with the asterisk beside them. I do not want them in my Hall of Fame. Is what I heard come right out of Ernie Banks' mouth. So you do have that part to contend with.
We welcome my partner, Todd Hollinsworth, here. When you hear those comments, you played in that era. What do you think?
It doesn't sit well with me. I mean, the era, that's my career. I understand it. That's the era that I had to play through. And I understood what was going on at the time. Not to the level that we see it now, but there were mistakes in the process leading us down this. Fans bought into what they were seeing, not what they were being told or why it was happening, being cause and effect. But, yeah, he's absolutely right. The home run chase was fantastic. There's no doubt about it. But even I was buying into it under the pretenses that maybe guys are, maybe guys aren't using steroids. And then you find out everybody is using steroids, that the playing field wasn't level. I mean, you got to be kidding me, coming from a user himself. So, yeah, the game is cleaning itself up. We're dealing with it now, and I can see his point in that the baseball that we were watching then tainted. The baseball that we're watching now, still working through biogenesis and everything else that's going on, certainly has a little bit of a dark cloud hanging over it, but it's going to be better one day.
I'm sure there's pitchers from back then that feel like their careers might have been different if they didn't have to pitch against the guys that were juicing. And I'm sure there's ball players that feel like they were doing it the right way, busting their butt every day, and get right. And he's busting his butt, and he's got to put up with guys that are cheating. And if you remember who gave up Homer 62 to McGwire, Traxel used to, hate those guys. And he feels like it impacted his whole career.
Well, but you think about it, too, though. Some of the pitchers were juicing, too. So you had pitchers that were juicing and hitters that were juicing. You had everybody going whichever way.
Right, but you had guys that were doing it the right. I mean,
sure.
Our society
but
teaches us.
How many hitters, though, would have liked to have not faced Roger Clemens when he was juicing, So, I mean, that affected their statistics, too.
Is it a better game to you? I mean, is it a better game now?
It will be. It will be, because, again, you have to remember how we see this. We go back and we view 98 and the great home run chase with everything. with all of us, most of us, collectively thinking, something's fishy about this, but nobody's talking about it, so it's all good.
Put yourself back in Rocker's shoes when he said, guy pays $120 a ticket. He gets to watch that right there. Sammy, McGuire, all these juiced up guys. It was more entertaining. I understand his point on that.
Let me ask you, if somebody other than John Rocker said it, what would you think? Like if Cal Ripken said it was a more entertaining game. Maybe Cal Ripken wouldn't say that, I don't know. But somebody that is on the right side of the media. Would you agree with that?
We're not watching WWE here. You have to.
I agree with that.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got to remember that you're watching this. You bought into this emotionally with the idea. And listen, say what you will. We all had a little bit of an idea something didn't seem right, but nobody was pointing fingers.
Right, but you come at it from a perspective of a former player who did it the right way. Well, look at the 42,000 that are going crazy. All they know is they plunk down their Lincolns, and they're like, this is awesome.
Who didn't know any better? Who didn't know any better? Who maybe had a thought?
I don't know any better. Like, I didn't care. Like, I was a fan during.
Well, I mean, again, that's your opinion and that's your perspective.
Yeah, like people say, well, you can't use steroids because guys, you know, are gonna die or gonna. I'm interested in seeing what happens to guys that use steroids that are my age right now. McGuire's basically our age, 50 years old. What happens to them physically? Like, because there's a thought. Like, I read all these things.
That they'll die early.
There's a thought they'll die early, and there's a thought that, what is HGH? Human growth hormones and all these things?
Might lengthen their life.
Might. Yep. I think it's going to be an interesting thing to see, because the idea is Lyle Alzado. Remember John Matusak? These guys, well, they died. Who was it? Not Bagwell. Well, Caminetti. Caminetti.
Right.
Well, they were doing a lot of other things.
Right.
They weren't doing and as scientific as some of these things that these guys were doing. So I think that's going to be interesting moving forward. Like, I loved watching Sammy Sosa every night. The debate was, who'd you like better, Sosa or McGuire?
But describe the eyes that you watched it with. See, and that's where the guys, the
players, eyes were on my couch.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though.
I mean, you game on tonight. I can't wait.
You weren't questioning what was going on behind the scenes.
And I don't care.
The players themselves, as a former player, was very aware of what was going on behind the scenes. Did not feel. Probably should have had more of a conviction, but felt like an isolated one man who had maybe had a voice, and we didn't get together and have that meeting, that should have said, the game's not right, people. You're not watching pure baseball right now. You're watching tainted baseball.
Okay, but do you believe that if you're a Cubs fan, you're never played in the major leagues, you're a basketball guy, okay, if I said to you, did you hear the Cubs just signed some guy from the Dominican we've never heard of, and he shows up here, you don't know that he's juiced out of his mind, they can't catch him. He knows how to beat the test, and he's got 59 home runs at the All-Star break.
Let's go.
You're like, sign him up,
Let's go. Yep. Here's the one problem I have, and it's not necessarily guys in the major leagues that did it right. It's the guys in the minor leagues where you and I are basically the same. And it seems like this is what happened in this era, Todd. You and I are basically the same. I make the decision to do roids or whatever, whatever I'm going to do. You make the decision not to.
You make it.
I jet up to the major leagues, and you're selling insurance in Skokie. I don't.
What's the matter with Skokie?
Nothing's wrong with Skokie. But I'm just saying.
That's where he lives.
Guy's going to make I'm going to make $10 million playing base. We both love baseball, and I made a decision not to. I made the right decision based on the rules and the law and everything else, and you didn't. And now there you are, or I did.
You have to remember that applies to everything in life. It's not just professional sports. If somebody did that to you outside the game, you were trying to get you both go in for a job interview, and somebody had a little something on you or something and decided to bring it to the table, and they got the job. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's the same kind of situation. It's the same scenario.
But that something is artificial.
Absolutely.
That's being brought to the table, and that's not really what he's saying.
Right, you're a writer, right?
No. But editor.
Editor. All right. You're an editor. Somebody walks in and says, all right, I got this pill. It's going to make you the best editor in the country. You're going to make more money than you ever had. If you don't take this pill, Joey Bag of Donuts down the street, who's also an editor, is going to go. Every guy in these big buildings that are executives here in Chicago would take whatever pill it is. Legal? It's not illegal. Let's put it that way. And I think everybody would. And to me, you're talking about making it pure baseball. To me, it was Major League Baseball's fault for knowing this is going on and yet not doing anything. If you want to fault, people, they forced by not having rules, and I feel like dumb telling you what you already know, but by not having any rules, they force guys to make those decisions.
Absolutely.
You know, I thought it was great. Frank Thomas and Valentin wanted the White Sox not to take the tests so that everybody would be forced to take the test. Here's what stinks about it. We're a country that loves records. And for every sport, the greatest number was 61. And now Barry Bonds has what,
73.
73. People don't even know that. And if Chris Crush Davis of the Orioles hit 65 home runs this year, Barry Bonds still has the record, and Chris Davis is doing it the right way.
I've got a young son. He says to me the other day, "How about Chris Davis, Dad? He's got 33 home runs." He said, "Got to be doing steroids."
That's
it's
exactly
just
how I
so
look
sad.
at it.
And it's
All right, we got to take a break. Our Diamond Talk will continue on Sports Talk Live. Next, we'll preview the series opener between the Cubs and Cards. Edwin Jackson on the bump tonight up at the friendly confines. Baseball can exhale. The captain is back for the Yankees. Or is he? Something may have happened. Excitement in the Bronx goes bad. We'll explain next on Sports Talk Live. All right, back to the Cubs. Edwin Jackson takes the hill tonight against one of his many former teams. The Cardinals faces Jake Westbrook. Jackson's been pitching well as of late. Has he turned the corner, Holly?
Well, let's hope so. The last couple starts have been good. I talk about managing those innings where he puts traffic out there, and that's really what it comes down to. Again, you're going to look tonight. He's going to be tested. He's struggled against the Cardinals, had the big inning against him his last start against the Cardinals. What do the Cardinals do so well? Constantly put pressure on you. This is a very, very interesting team. They're right around 10th in the National League in home runs, first in runs scored. They're working against what everybody in baseball is doing right now, which is, the teams on top are typically hitting a lot of home runs. So they're going to keep constant pressure on him. Really tonight, for me, it's going to be all about his slider. Can he get the swing and the misses from the Cardinal bats on that slider? If not, he's going to become dimensional. He's going to become a one-pitch pitcher. Cardinals will feast.
You're going to the game tonight, Dan.
Yes, sir.
You got to be excited to see Edwin Jackson pitch.
Sure.
you never know what you're going to get.
You got about 4 hours and 45 minutes in you.
I got all the time in the world. I got nowhere to be. Let's talk. I'm interested in your thoughts here. Why do baseball teams, you got Garza who's 29 years old, and I understand you don't want to pay a salary. I understand you're breaking it down to build it up. But is it so far off to ask? Is it so ridiculous? Aren't you going to get prospects that you want to become Garza? So you already have Garza. Why not just keep one guy around and have a veteran presence for young kids? Is that ridiculous?
It's not ridiculous. Again, you're asking a timing question, and it's the timing of when the system starts to reap, when it starts to produce the product that you need to win, and that's the bottom line. When you're counting on your system to produce a championship caliber team year in and year out, you've got to rebuild this. The acknowledgement that you've gotten from the Cubs is that we're bad. We're bad all the way through the system. When Theo and company came on board, we have to rebuild the system, and in order to rebuild the system, you have to tear the system down. Well, you're at ground level, and in baseball, you have the minor leagues that feed your big league team. That's the idea right now. You look at how the game is run through free agency, how that has changed, through how the draft has changed. It puts a premium on your minor league system and producing prospects. It's not that Matt Garza is bad or that Matt Garza couldn't survive or be great here in Chicago for the next 5 years. The question is, are the Cubs going to be relevant enough for them to pay him, keep him, and
justify
and have it make sense? That's exactly right, especially when his value couldn't be any higher than it is right now.
Right. Is it out of the realm to think, all right, we're bad, but how long can you say that we're bad? Like if you keep Garza, or whoever, maybe it's Smarja, I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
But you're saying to the fans, all right, we're bad, but we're still trying to win now.
Absolutely.
Like if you get rid of everybody, you're telling your fans, look, we know we're bad.
You're putting the brakes on the rebuild. You're saying it's going to take longer.
Yeah, and so at what point, or maybe there's not a point. Maybe you're all in to rebuild, so these guys are all gone. We're going to build it back up. But is there any sense of like, all right, we're going to show these fans at least a little bit that we still think we can win now?
Well, I think that's what Edwin Jackson represented this winter.
Okay.
That's exactly what that signing was. We're going to try to rebuild the biggest issue that we had last year, which was our starting pitching did nothing for us. How many guys do we watch march out there? Guys that we had to identify with.
Jason Birkin and Justin Germano.
It was
embarrassing.
a long list of guys. It didn't work. It just flat out didn't work. Okay, they invested in Edwin Jackson. That was their decision. That was their choice. What were they targeting? Stable innings, 200-inning guy. That's really what it comes down to. It wasn't, great performance. He didn't come from the Nationals. He came from the Nationals with a 4 ERA. So if you thought he was going to be great, I think you're probably the one making the mistake. Honestly, they're trying to rebuild the system. They have to. They're taking what they have of value. If they believe they're getting back a fair trade or something more than that, they're going to make those deals for the near future. Is that a year or two? Probably.
Right.
I don't think it's much more than that, though.
In the Bronx today, the captain returned to the lineup for the New York Yankees. All right, time for our poll results. There you have it. The majority has spoken. They like it the way it was in 1998, pre-steroid testing. The minority likes it the way it is now. Let's get to that in a second. Brazilian soccer player Maurides paid a price for celebrating his first career goal. After scoring in the 89th minute of a 3-1 win, 19-year-old striker decided to end things with a backflip. But check this out. There he goes. This is his first career goal. Watch his right knee. Right? Now. Oh. Not good. Next thing you'll see is him on a stretcher as they take him out. Stretcher right off the field. He's got a ligament injury. Not smart. Almost as dumb as skating with 5-year-olds. Anyway.
Kendrick Morales.
Yeah.
Bill Grammatica.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Bill Grammatica. There's another one. All right, before we get out of here. So the poll results have spoken. Does that bother you? Do you say, no, I understand where they're coming from?
No, I understand where they're coming from. It really doesn't. It doesn't bother me in the least. Of course, I mean, I'm a former player speaking. You have to remember that as well. I lived it. I lived through that era, and I understood it. I saw what the fans' response was to the era. There's
So
no
did you
doubt
ever
about
go
it.
in the locker room and go, oh, my God?
All the time. All the time. But again, it's not as though the power of the union speaks and it's, you know, your brother here and your brother here, and it's like you're having these little meetings. Oh, look at this guy, you know, let's bring this up in the next union meeting. It just doesn't work that way. You get into the routine of the season, you show up, you do your job just like everybody else, and you leave and you go home and you be with your family. And I mean, so much of it is, that doesn't seem right, but who am I to get up on my pedestal, up on my soapbox, and start pointing fingers?
I think those poll results are jaded. They liked the Cubs in '98.
They did.
They like Sosa.
No,
Now the Cubs
well,
are-
you know what I kind of actually was laughing at
Right.
is that we're in Chicago now.
Right.
We're in the middle of
They're
a rebuild.
struggling.
And
Of
of
course
course we
they're
like
gonna
what was
like-
going
right, that's
on.
all-
in
that's
the
all-
game.
15
That's right.
years ago, we were going nuts every night.
That's right.
So, of course, people in Chicago are going to vote that way.
The advertisers liked it. Chicks dig the long ball. Remember that?
It was huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
Well, you try to figure out why baseball was so delayed in trying to correct this
And we
issue.
didn't have Twitter then, but I remember people would text me, are you what? Yeah, I'm watching.
Yeah.
Sosa just hit another one. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I don't buy, people say, well, and maybe the attendance numbers are a little bit down, but I watch this every day in the paper. I watch attendance numbers, and maybe they're jacked up. Okay, fine, but tickets are sold. If you really watch every night, pretty good. 40,000 here, 35,000.
People are into it.
People are really into it. So, while I think we all want to complain, and you know, back then was great, I enjoy watching today's baseball. I
fun.
really enjoy it. It's really
Great athletes.
Yeah.
Tremendous athletes.
Everybody looks skinnier though. That's amazing.
Well, you know, the
watch-
thing about we've become jaded. My era, there's no. I mean, believe me, I was working out, trying to keep up. I was playing at 227 pounds when I should have probably been playing at 220 because I knew what was going on. A corner outfielder needed to be hitting 25 to 30 home runs. Well, I never hit 20 ever in my life anywhere, and here I was halfway through my major league career trying to keep up. So I mean, it was like, you know, you got to work hard, get your butt into the weight room, you know, start throwing the weight around, put some size on. Hopefully you'll start getting some more distance with the ball, and maybe you can start working on a little bit more of an uppercut. But I'll tell you, I mean, all your points are very good as to why you see a lot of these players, it's still even today, make this regretful decision.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We had a lot of fun. That's a wrap for Sports Talk Live, presented by our great partners at Land Rover. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow, a 5 o'clock start time before we carry White Sox baseball. Don't forget, Holly and I have a post-game show later tonight. Cubs and Cardinals teed up at Wrigley. Dan, thanks for being here. Have a great time at the game tonight.
Thank you.